is a difficulty keeping so many different views under one umbrella, as I think the 9/11 Truth campaigns have found. Because within 9/11 Truth, of course, you've got those that are very concerned about the main evidence, the scientific evidence, the physics of the way the towers collapsed, for instance. But then you have the, shall we say, the more sort of fantastic sort of views of holograms and all of this kind of side of it, which may or may not be true. I'm not insulting them, but it is considered obviously more extreme. And then, of course, when they do not feel they're given a voice, they then accuse the others of trying to keep the truth down. And then, of course, again, you get rifts, you get arguments, and then that truth campaign is made less effective. So I think this is something we always have to really guard against and try and allow, reasonable debate across the spectrum without taking sides where camps appear which then destroy each other. And it is tricky, and I think it would be very easy for the authorities to manipulate these kinds of conflicts.
Absolutely, couldn't agree more in that sense. What do you think about, if we talk about the concept of truth as such, because I obviously I believe that there is, a truth out there, but at the same time, I also recognize that seeking the truth is also very much about an individual journey towards kind of painting your own picture of the world. And it's not only about finding the collective truth, so to speak, because what is scientifically evidence can be argued always, what is, perception, what is, testimony, who's, contributing with the stories, etc., etc. We have all these little anomalies in these, various, aspects that we need to consider as well. It's not always as easy as that, if I can put it that way, Andy.
Yes, well, I think this is something that's troubled philosophers for years. Is there one empirical truth? And obviously, perhaps in some simpler areas, you can establish that. But I think in anything where the truth is not known, be it about UFOs, be it about the Illuminati or 9/11, whatever, all you can do, I think, to stay on the safe side is to just keep debate alive. For instance, with 9/11, some people, in recent times especially, have got very, very definite about what they think is going on. It's a Zionist plot, or it's this plot, or it's that plot. And that, again, it makes others feel uncomfortable who feel that there is no question that we've not been told the truth, that whatever the final truth is hasn't yet been revealed. And I think over the next few years we will see, I do feel we will see steps towards getting nearer to an accurate portrayal of, for instance, what happened on 9/11. And certainly, interestingly, when you look at things like the astrological view, which you had Alan Sewell talking about last year, covering the astrology of 2012, we are actually moving into times where that is more likely to happen, where things that have been hidden are likely to be revealed. And I do sense that. But I think at the moment, for anybody to stand on their pedestal and say, I have the truth and nobody else has the truth, is, I think, an unhelpful position. And what it does is just encourage further division, which destroys the effectiveness of the movements. And I think at the moment, what we have to just do is create debate, keep debate alive, and spread the awareness that there is a debate to be had to the general population. And I take climate change as a good example. Now, it's only recently that the fact that there was any debate at all about global warming has really gone public, because it was, the release of the Climate Gate tapes, which, or emails, I should say, which suddenly took mainstream the view that, well, actually, maybe we're not being told the truth about global warming. And although there's obviously now been lots of whitewashes, there are, official reports saying, oh no, nothing was withheld, if you actually look at those emails, it's absolutely clear that somebody is manipulating the information and the data about global warming. So what is interesting, what's happened as a result of that, is that there is at least an awareness that there might be a debate to be had. And when you looked at the polls in Britain at least, people were not quite sure about global warming. Even just a year or so back, 60%, I think, of people were still saying that they were not sure that the case for global warming had been proved.
Yeah.
And of course, this was met with great condescension from government ministers and TV pundits who, basically used it to say how moronic the public was or were. Whereas, in fact, what I think the truth was that they realised somewhere deep in their hearts, in the collective, that they weren't being allowed to discuss something that had not been properly presented to them. Now, at least what we do now have, despite the attempts to cover it all up, is a realization that there may well be another side to the climate change debate. And what I think is getting too dogmatic about it makes you as bad as the very people that you feel you're up against. Do you know what I mean?
Mm.
Those that don't believe in global warming have to try to open out the debate to the general public, rather than hitting them round the face saying, no, global warming isn't real and you must believe this, because that is no better than what they've been offered in the other direction.
I agree.
And what I find very much when I present to groups and with the Truth Agenda, the reaction to the book, when you just present to them, look, there is a debate to have and it's really important that we have it. Here's the evidence. Now, they're comfortable with that. And then people will often say, well, yeah, I can see this is not black and white. I can now see that there is something here that needs looking at. And then they have freedom to choose their minds, to choose what they think is their truth.
Mm.
So maybe at some point a final truth will arrive. But at the moment, we just need to get debate alive, have consciousness of what the true issues are, and not what the very contrived, very narrow issues, that get presented to us all the time. But we have to rise above that and see there's a wider spectrum of issues to consider.
Yeah, and in one way as well, I guess that it's as always up to the people who are, kind of non-decided or in the middle of all of this. That are being played like ping pong balls, back and forth between argumentation all the time, because on one hand they might come from a perspective as well where I don't have the time or the energy to get involved in these issues. It's just too much for me. I just want to have someone who tells me the truth about these things, and then I can move on and make decisions accordingly. But the problem there again is, of course, that no, you have to take some, responsibility and open up your eyes and have some interest about, your own life, humanity, and what is going on the planet. There must be a spark there to begin with. That's what I feel, at least.
I think you're right, and I think this is why polarizing people is not a solution, and what we have to do is embrace that always tricky middle ground. And of course, when you stand in the middle ground on something, you then get attacked from both sides,
right,
from both extremes, saying, well, if you're not supporting me, you must be against me. And I think that's a very old-fashioned way of doing things, and I certainly think the conspiracy theory community, if you like, needs to stop and see that what people who've not come across this information before need most right now is actually the realization that there is another side to consider which actually is as relevant as the other, and that it's safe to stand in the middle and consider both sides for a while, because they've only had one side. People coming new to this, all they've had is what they've been fed in the mainstream. But if then somebody is grabbing them by the throat, trying to pull them across to an opposite extreme, they're not going to go easily. So that's not helpful, and you have to just say, no, that's fine. You don't have to believe anything or, come across into my point of view, but just see that there is data, there is evidence here, which will give you another perspective.
Yeah.
And then you will find very, very quickly, especially with things like 9/11, people actually will quite willingly then move to, shall we say, the other side of the official view. Because as soon as you become aware of the evidence, you can see for yourself how it does not stand up in the official view.
Absolutely. I think you're absolutely right. And I think what would help there as well is what I'm bothered by in some cases is the certainty of some of these people who are still kind of willing and dealing with theories at the end of the day. And I guess what I'm advocating here as well is some gentleness and some kindness towards people who are newcomers in these fields. How can you possibly know as much as someone who's been studying something or subject for 5, 10, 15 years, but it's almost like they're hitting them over the head right away for not knowing all the things that they know. And it's a very aggressive and very negative energy in that as well. And ultimately that makes people obviously to turn away from these subjects. So to people who really want to spread the awareness and really want to spread the true answers, or at least the questions about some of these subjects, have to also be considerate in terms of how they speak to people, how they communicate, and the energy even behind their intention when they talk to some